Cheers.
Mum, look.
Go.
Mum.
Go.
My name is Sean Cressinger, and I'm a self-employed carpenter. I also have multiple sclerosis. Now, multiple sclerosis, or MS as it's mainly called, it's a chronic, lifelong, generally progressive disease causing damage to the nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. I was diagnosed with MS around 5 years ago when I realised I couldn't form my words. I had the words in my head to say, ready to say, but they just wouldn't form, they wouldn't come out. And I said to my partner, Michelle, I need an ambulance. Off I went to the hospital, and at the hospital I underwent a series of tests, including a CT scan, an MRI scan, various other tests, things I'd never ever heard of. They were all carried out, and there it was. I was told I had MS. MS wasn't new to me. I had an aunt who had passed away due to complications with MS. I have several cousins with MS, and my sister had MS before she passed away due to a non-MS condition. Slowly, the reality dawned on me that my working life could be over. I could become increasingly weaker, unable to walk, possibly even needing a wheelchair in the future, and ultimately a burden to my family. The MRI scan showed lots of areas on my brain and right down through my spine that they were showing lesions, and potentially and probably this was over time just going to get worse. The doctors offered me disease modifying therapy, but they could help to delay disability by using some pretty potent drugs, either pills, injections or infusions. So I spent the next 6 months reading through the effectiveness of these treatments, but also the long list of side effects that were quite probable. I remember some even having a risk of mortality, and I said to myself, my family are going to prefer me in a wheelchair than not being here. So ultimately I chose a pill to take twice a day, which wasn't going to be as effective for the MS, but carried less risk. This diagnosis was bad enough in its own right, but worse, much worse, was the knowledge that I may have passed this down to my two girls. MS affects many more females than males, and it can often start in your 20s. Now, my girls were teenagers at the time. That in mind, I dropped like a stone into this big black hole where there was no way of climbing out of it. I started to take the drug that was offered, and it seemed okay for a couple of weeks. I thought, oh well, I've got away with that, it's fine. But then some of the side effects hit me. I began to notice a rash on my upper torso that started to itch. It spread profusely, and nothing would ease it. The itch, it was maddening. The itch just drove me nuts. It felt that this was far worse than my MS, and nothing doctors gave me seemed to help. I'd also get a flushing which would come on with no warning. It's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable. I had a certain tiredness that only seemed to stem from the pill, and just such a low mood. I began to work half days with the associated drop in income that means. I'd stop early afternoons because at that point I wasn't thinking clearly. As a carpenter, I wasn't measuring accurately, and I was making silly mistakes, which, as a generally as a perfectionist with my work, it was just totally unacceptable. Around about the 6 months after my diagnosis, at this low point, my mother-in-law mentioned to me that she'd read in a magazine, people with MS, she thought they weren't meant to have milk. And I thought, well, I hadn't heard of that, so it was worth a look. It was worth a look on the internet. So I looked online, and the first website I came to was called OMS. And OMS, it stands for Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis. So here I go, I thought, witch doctors with a miracle cure. But as I looked more closely into the site, I saw that this organisation, it was headed by a medical professor, a man called George Jelinek, who also has MS. I saw that the programme wasn't a fad, it wasn't listed as a cure, it wasn't a quick fix, it was based on the medical evidence. It was saying that this OMS programme had been developed to act alongside or even instead of drugs, to provide a very real chance of living actually a healthy, high quality life and still have MS. There are 7 steps to the program. The first step is diet. Simply put, the diet is a plant-based, whole food diet, plus seafood. It minimises the intake of saturated fat and encourages the use of omega-3 within your diet. Step 2 is to do with sun and vitamin D. Because most people, when diagnosed with MS, have a low vitamin D level, and there's just constantly growing evidence that vitamin D can improve your health outcome if you have MS, and importantly to me, even prevent it if you don't already have it. I'd normally be doing this semi-naked, but it's not that type of film. Step 3 would be exercise. The OMS recommends about 30 minutes of exercise, vigorous if possible, if you're up to it, vigorous, 3 to 5 times a week. So for me, personally, I cycle and I use gym equipment that I've got here at home, such as a cross trainer and rowing machine. Step 4, which was completely new to me, is meditation and mindfulness. The world is a fast-paced, high-pressured, and stress seems to be everywhere. This stress alone can trigger MS relapses, so it makes this stress management vital. I've learned to meditate for around 30 minutes a day. It's become a time of peace that I look forward to. Step 5 is medication. Now, OMS is not saying don't take any of the disease modifying therapies on offer. It's a personal choice, but it is saying that there are plenty of things you can do for yourself to have a fulfilling, healthy life other than purely taking the drugs that are on offer. Step 6, very important to me, is to prevent family members from getting MS. Bearing in mind, genetics make up about 25% of the risk of getting MS, and there's steps you can take to significantly decrease the chances of your family members getting it. And that, like I say, is hugely important to me. And finally, step 7 is to do whatever it takes. It's not an instant fix. It's thought that if you follow the program, it may well take 3 to 5 years before you notice any changes, any effects. I've been following the program for 4 years, and I've gradually noticed my balance becoming better, my walking becoming better. The odd feelings that I'd had in my limbs were disappearing. If they hadn't disappeared, if they were still there, they seemed to be affecting me. They were milder, they seemed to be affecting me less, and I was less tired. I could work longer hours again. People with MS, they generally have a yearly MRI scan to check for new disease activity, and I think for 3 years now mine has remained stable, which wasn't the case in the first year after diagnosis. So for me, that was as good a result as I could ask for. I know the feeling of just being diagnosed with MS. It's like the rug has been pulled from beneath your feet. All the plan that you ever had in your head has just been scrapped. It's a frightening, it's a lonely feeling, it's a numbing feeling. So what I would say to anybody who's just been diagnosed with MS is that life will go on. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to what's going on. Don't make instant changes. Look at the options that you have. Look at them carefully. Don't just consider the drugs that are available, but think of the lifestyle changes that you can make to potentially vastly improve your outcome. The OMS program can be tough, but there's loads of local support if you give it a go. And well, basically, if I can blooming well do it, then you can too. There you go, my dear, all that, do you?